So, a lot of us have heard of people healing and using plant-based foods to recover from illness. But today, I want to do something different. I want to give an opportunity for people to share their experiences with animal foods and how they use animal foods to recover or heal themselves, or as I like to say, bring themselves back to balance. So, we're going to start this off by sharing our story and what got us to start incorporating animal foods back into our diet. And so, yeah, this process started a couple years back, and I would say it was around the time when we came to Hawaii. So she was pregnant. This is my wife. This is
Hey.
Grace, and she had just had a child. She had our child, and she was very skinny. She had lost a lot of weight, and she wasn't looking too good, and neither was Zen, to be honest. So when we land here in Hawaii, we had friends that were also that vegan, for a long period of time. But when we got here, they kind of revealed to us, like, look, we've been experimenting with incorporating some of these animal foods. And at the time, it was just like local eggs and scallops and fish. It was very simple, but these were the animal foods that we first started to integrate. So my experience, it was just like I hadn't had animal foods in a long time, and I was
You want me to tell my experience?
okay. You go first. I
You
guess.
tell them the whole story.
Well,
It's no point in me telling the story.
I was gonna tell him my experience because I felt like it wasn't like physically like impactful.
But I
Because
think your story came after my story because you saw the results.
okay,
Like
yeah. So
Yeah.
tell us.
Yeah.
Your
So
experience.
as Ketzel was saying that I was vegan for 2 years. I'm not gonna say vegan because I know vegans like you were never vegan, but I was plant-based where I didn't have any animal products for 2 years, and I was doing just fine. And prior to that, for the past, I would say since I was 25 years old, I was learning about how not to have animal products in my diet because they were saying you shouldn't eat meat and meat's not good for your body. So I was on and off, being raw vegan and, not eating animal products. And so before I had our child, that was the longest where I didn't have any animal products in my diet. I was on a vegan diet, and I was doing really well until I got pregnant. When I got pregnant, that's when things changed for me. And the whole time I was pregnant, I was craving meat. That's all I wanted to eat. And at the time, like Rambo, well, I call you Rambo. Rambo and I, we were very dogmatic about our diet. And we just wasn't the type of vegans that ate processed foods. Like, we really ate from the earth, per se, like all homemade foods, rice, beans. We were living in Mexico, so we were really getting good quality fruits and vegetables, as best quality as you could get. Like, we weren't in the States. And so when I got pregnant, I noticed that I wasn't gaining any weight. If anything, I was losing weight, but I was craving meat. And I was telling my husband that, and he was just like, oh, your body's just deficient. You probably need some mineral or vitamin. Because he was still in the mindset, like, you don't eat meat, but I just remember craving hamburgers, hot dogs, chicken nuggets. Like, if I could just get some meat in my body, I would have felt so much better. And I didn't, because I was very strict about what I put in my body until after I had our child, that he was malnourished. Like, he was very small, and even after giving birth to him, I was still craving meat, and I could not pick up any weight. And the people that we were with, they were feeding me, but they were not giving me the nourishment that I needed, because you can only get so much nourishment from rice and beans and and fruits and vegetables, especially when the baby was breastfeeding, and I don't even know if I was producing a lot of milk, because I didn't go to the doctor when we were in Mexico. Our son, he's at the window crying. So because we just wasn't going to go to the hospitals in Mexico. That's just part of our belief system as well. And so I don't even know how much milk I was producing because I was not getting enough calories, enough fat in my diet. But my body was telling me, you need more fat. You need more fat in your diet. And I wasn't listening, but I definitely was communicating with my husband, that I said, I feel like I need to start eating meat again. And he was just like, yeah, I don't know if that's something, that you should do. Your body just needs some type of nutrient. You got to figure out the nutrient that your body needs. Because at the time, his mind was still not where it is today. And I was just like, I just feel like I need to eat meat or I'm not going to gain any weight. I think I was like after I had my child, I was like less than 90 pounds. Like, after giving birth to a baby, I was less than 90 pounds. And so when like he was saying, when we went to Hawaii, that's when things changed for us. It's when we came to Hawaii. Like, if you ever been to Hawaii, it's a whole other vibe. Like, you just feel something different here. And then we met our friends that we stayed with, and then they were telling us, that they weren't, just strictly fruits and vegetables, plant-based in that way. And then I was telling them, this is how I've been feeling. And I feel like I need to start eating meat. And they said they were feeling the same way. And they started incorporating like fish and eggs. So I promise you guys, when I started incorporating, all I did was incorporate some salmon and some farm fresh eggs. Still was eating my standard diet at that time, which was beans and rice and potatoes and salads and stuff. I gained 10 pounds within 1 week. 10 pounds. And that's when I knew. I was like, not everyone can have a vegan diet. Not everyone. And then sometimes you can, but there's going to be circumstances that's going to change that, because everybody's body is different. And especially for women, once you have a baby, your body is definitely not the same after you have a child. And especially breastfeeding. My child was breastfeeding 24/7. So the fruits and vegetables were not enough for me to sustain myself and to sustain our child. And so it was probably one of the best things that, I ever did. And I think he had jaundice, and his jaundice went away just because I incorporated like fish and eggs back into my diet. So
Yeah. And I think that that's the main point that I want to point out too, that the most period of time in our life when we most need these foods is during reproduction. And that's the most point of the time where these foods have been like the topic of concentration for like traditional people. So like when a man is expecting to like start reproducing, he starts to eat more animal foods. They start to feed him certain organs, certain parts of the animal, right? And even when a woman is pregnant, and before she gets pregnant and after, they're giving her certain foods, and it's usually like organ meats and foods that are highly concentrated in certain nutrients. So a lot of people that are dealing and pushing like plant-based diets, a lot of them haven't been through that process of reproduction. Like, and a lot of them that do go through that process, that's when they have that switch. And as mothers, the instinct kicks in, and they're like, well, this isn't working out, because now this is a process that's happening that's out of the standard norm. This is requiring a lot more from my body, right? So as a woman, that changes them differently than it would somebody who's not in that reproductive phase in their life. So I think I see a lot of people say, well, after I was vegan, then I had a child, and then that's when I started to experience all these things, because a lot of us are still functioning and operating from the animal foods that we ate as children and that we were given when we were younger. So people's vitality is highly influenced by the things that structurally built their body, which is animal foods, Yeah. So when you get into that stage of reproduction, like Zen was taking life and nutrients and minerals and everything out of your body, so you were no longer had that foundation that was built, that was solid, because now you're having to pass that energy on to him. So if you don't replace that back quickly enough, there's a deficiencies that take place. And the thing about animal foods is that they're concentrated. So animal foods, if you think about it, animal is eating vegetation all day long. So in its tissues and its organs and its body, that's energy and minerals and vitamins,
proteins and the fats,
all of that is concentrating all of that into its body. So when you take it, it's like you getting a heavy dose of plant foods. In a way, just like plants concentrate minerals and they concentrate certain substances that we utilize for medicine, animals also concentrate these substances, especially when they're like wild game that's eating wild plants in their natural environment. So I think that's why people can eat animal foods and experience such a like dramatic shift, because they're eating a concentrated amount of nutrition. So yeah, right now I want to open up, like, if anybody wants to come and share their story. We shared a little bit about our story and how we started incorporating animal foods again. But if anybody wants to come on camera and share their story of how they use animal foods to restore their body back to balance, just send a request and we'll bring you on.
Yeah, it's more common than people realize that this so-called vegan diet, it's not as good as people think. Like, it's very, once I start telling my story about why I wasn't vegan anymore, then that's when the floodgate had opened up to so many women saying the same thing happened to them. And a lot of women felt ashamed because, the vegan diet is supposed to be the number one diet, but why is it making me sick? And of course, they want to have so many excuses as to why, instead of just realizing, okay, this is not for your body. Your body is telling you, I need something else. Listen to your body. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm still ASH. Am I still breastfeeding? Yes, I'm still breastfeeding. Yeah. And he is 2 years old. And he doesn't breastfeed as much. Like, he doesn't do night feeding. But yeah, I still breastfeed.
Right. And I just think that also it's about having this discernment about knowing and being open to utilizing different tools and different foods when you need them, like situationally, not just blanketly saying like you eat this every single day, the same thing all the time, no matter how you're feeling. Like, nah, I think that's a very disconnected approach. That's disconnecting you from your own body cycles and what is actually happening when you just eat the same thing every day. So, when you reach a point in your life when your body might be like, look, I need this nutrient, or we're going through this process that requires you to intake more food or a certain type of food, you have to be able to listen to that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, of course, I know people are always going to say like, well, they weren't doing it right. That's one of the things, right, that you hear a lot of people say, you weren't doing it right. And for me, I think this whole topic of animal foods extends past physical healing and goes into a different type of healing that is, for me, what animal foods have started to do is to heal my relationship with life and death, and to heal the way I look at reality, because it's connecting me back into that cycle and to accept that my more mortality, So that has been a different type of healing for myself. We tend to focus heavily on the physical aspect of healing, which is a lot more tangible. But then there's this other component to where, how are we relating to the world, and how is the way that we eat affecting our worldview? Because a lot of the times we intertwine how we eat with our own identity. That's why when you go to people's profile, the first thing they tell you is how they eat: plant-based, vegan, carnivore, because we're entwining that with our identity. So when somebody presents some information that's like, oh no, I actually ate the opposite of what you're saying and I got good results, we feel defensive. We get defensive. We feel challenged because in a sense, we feel like it's challenging our own identity, but it's nothing personal, because you were who you were before you started eating that way, and you'll be who you are after you stop eating that way. So we have to get more objective about it and stop making it so much about us, and realizing that what we see is what is real. We can talk about theories and what we came from, and history has been distorted and all this shit that people bring to the table. But at the end of the day, what do we see and experience? Let's not disconnect from our own tangible experience and what we're experiencing. If people are on here sharing their story, look, I healed myself with animal foods. Why are you dismissing and being like, you're trying to find holes in your own reality? Like, oh no, that wasn't it. It was because of this. Oh no, it's because they weren't eating enough sea moss. From they weren't eating enough alkaline. There's always a reason to, like, they're always trying to find holes in their own reality instead of just accepting things for what they are. Like, all cultures traditionally have eaten animal foods as a part of their diet, so we can try to justify and be like, well, it's because we fell from grace, or it was because Europeans came, and we can try to do all that, but it just goes way beyond that. You know, when our experiences are correlating something, I think it is wise that we listen to that, our experience, and listen to our reality and our nervous system and our body, and tune into that instead of a meme that somebody posted online that said meat is, you know, mucus forming and all this shit, you know, and because from that point you're not even listening to your own body anymore. Like, I don't feel like meat digests bad for me. Like, I feel like when I eat meat, like, I feel fine. Like, when I eat rice and beans, that's when I feel fucked up. But for so long I was suppressing that because I'm like, oh, it's plant-based, oh, it's this, it must be healthy for you. But I wasn't allowing myself to feel that bodily process because I was too focused on somebody's ideology that I had heard about or read about online instead of correlating my own experience, you know. So said Kim says, how much meat do you incorporate in your diets? Well, I don't know, we don't really count it like that.
Well, I was thinking about that when I saw the question. Like, sometimes we will have it for breakfast, like eggs and maybe some type of breakfast meat, but that's not all the time. And then for our main meal, like, sometimes we'll have it for our main meal, but sometimes I might make a vegetable soup, so it's not like we're always eating it all the time. But for mostly for our dinner, that's when we mostly eat the meat, and that's pretty much our meals that we have, you know, throughout the day. If we snack, it's probably fruit.
We focus a lot on local food. So we live in a tropical environment, and we live by the ocean, so we eat a substantial amount of local fish and local fruit. You know, we always looking for like fruit that's in season, that's locally grown here. So that's what we tend to focus on. Twan Lemieux said, no. People are doing vegan diets based off YouTube. They are not adequate research. So because they fail doesn't mean that diet doesn't work. Yeah. Well, that's going back to it. Like, yeah, obviously people can make the argument that the person didn't do it right. But then I could say, why are we learning how to be human off of YouTube anyways? Or why are people having to learn how to be human? Why aren't we just observing people who have never deviated from that and see what they're doing? See, that's what I'm talking about. Let me show you a video real quick so you can see firsthand what traditional people who have never been disconnected off of the land, how they think and how they view their relationship to food. Let me watch this. Just please watch this video. Let me know if you can hear it.
The Hadzabe are a small tribe of hunter-gatherers living by Lake Eyasi in Tanzania. They are some of the last true hunter-gatherers left on planet Earth and are under threat of disappearing. There are only about 1,500 left. About 2 months ago, I was fortunate to be able to spend 48 hours hunting with them. This is exciting. Go. It was all the excitement you'd expect. Later, I returned to join them, this time in a longer 72-hour hunting trek, deeper in the African bush. During this time, and right before raiding another baboon camp, I asked Sokolo, the leader of this tribe of hunter-gatherers, what's the most important thing in life?
Manako, bala, manakata. Ko haga kwa kakachana ihane nana tinga ko mati na
Is it baboons?
Yeah, he saw baboons.
Baboons over there.
But they can see the heel. They go to sleep over there. So.
That video goes longer. He starts asking them about questions about life and stuff and how he sees life. But just that first part, I just want to show it to you because it's kind of related to what we're talking about in terms of food. So when you ask somebody who's never been disconnected off of the land, who lives the traditional lifestyle uninterrupted, one of the few people left on earth where the most important thing in life is, they say meat. And the second thing is honey, another animal-based product. And then third is corn porridge, which is something that's been added obviously at a certain time because corn wasn't, domesticated to a certain period and then brought into their culture. But here's what I'm saying, like, connected to the land is a different experience than connected to civilization and having to choose the options of civilization. You can conjure up all types of diets. That's why we have all types of diets: pescatarian, Mediterranean. We have the keto. We have the paleo. We have all these diets because we have an abundance of resources. So people get creative and they start, oh, well, what if we did this and took this out? But it's not reflective of real life and being in a natural environment. What develops from there is a very different story, as you see, and people's values are very different when they rely heavily on the land or exclusively on the land for sustenance. So Lucas said, do you eat red meat? Yeah, we eat red meat. We don't make a distinction between red meat or brown meat or white meat. Like to me, there's that's another program that we've been handed down, that red meat is the actual cause of cancer, or that's the one that's the most detrimental or what have you. But see, whenever we start to make these kind of categorizations, the most important thing is to listen to your body, is to be aware of what's happening within yourself, so that you don't have to like have these outside sources telling you what's good or what's bad, because then you tune that self-awareness out.
Well, one thing we are doing is that we're not mixing our meats with fats.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like oils. We're not frying meats anymore.
That's a good point.
We're not mixing our proteins with our fats anymore.
That's a good point, because a lot of the times when people say like, oh, meat causes cancer and all these things, they're not taking into account the toxic seed oils that a lot of this meat is cooked in. Most of the meat, if you go to a restaurant, most of the food in general, if not all of it, is cooked with PUFAs, canola oil.
Don't forget, and coconut oil too. That's a fat.
Yeah, but they ain't cooking with that in the grocery
we
store.
know.
So they're cooked with polyunsaturated fatty acids, and if you do a little bit of research on that, you can see how those basically inside of the body, they heat up and they go through a process called lipid peroxidation, where basically they cause clogging of arteries and all kinds of stuff. It's the oils that actually this is happening, because they're very sensitive oils. They're not meant to be put at high heats. So when they isolate them from the plant, these oils become toxic, and they create something called lipofuscin inside of the body, which is like that yellow fat disease that people talk about. But they're blaming it on the meat, but it's really coming from the oils that everything is cooked in.
Yeah.
All this shit is cooked in oils.
Everything is cooked in oil. And it doesn't matter if it's coconut oil, or olive oil, or grapeseed oil, or avocado oil. We should not be cooking our vegetables in oil. Because why? Because water and oil does not mix.
Yeah.
And then adding that oil on top of your protein, animal already has a natural fat. It's like a water soluble fat that our bodies can digest. So this is why you see yourself getting sick or gaining weight when you're eating meat. It's not the meat, it's the oils, these added oils that we put in all of our foods. Next time you go to the grocery store, or when you get off this live, go in your kitchen and look at how much of your food has some type of added oil, because we have got distracted by no sugar or no salt. But the sugar and salt is not the issue. It is the added fat that we're putting in all of our foods that is the problem. So that's
and then mixing that with the
to.
carbohydrates too is very challenging for the body.
Yes. So we steam our meats, I grill our meats and bake them. Like, I'm moving away from frying. Like, I'm almost done with our olive oil and coconut oil. And once it's gone, that is it. I'm not buying oils anymore.
Okay, so somebody said, I grew up eating a very omnivorous diet, and when I tried switching to plant-based, I found myself eating more, gaining more weight, and not feeling full. Balance is key. Okay, I'm only reading questions that pertain to the topic at hand. So,
What happened?
Earthling, respect the cycles.
Oh,
Absolutely. It's a cycle. We lose connection, then we overdo it. It's just a cycle. Yeah, for sure, it's a cycle. So we coming back into remembering. Our ancestors treasured meat. That's universal. Universal. Every culture that you go to, you ask them, they're going to treasure, because it's a high density food. It perplexes me how entitled we are and how privileged that we are, that we can think that in the absence of grocery stores that we would be like, oh no, I don't want to eat that, because like, no, you would obviously, the foods that can taste the highest calories, the highest nutrients, you would obviously be like, that's the shit we want, you know?
Yeah.
But because we have access to grocery stores, like, people get on their high horse because they're shopping from a different aisle in the grocery store, right?
Yeah.
Like, that shit is crazy. Yeah, Layla said intuitive eating, as you said, listen to your body. For sure, man. Being in tune with ourselves is the thing that I think we've lost the most of, and especially with the internet and people pushing different diets and agendas, it's easy to get caught up and start following on the bandwagon of something that sounds good and it looks good, but through your experience you have to realize, is it good for you? And don't ever tune that out, because you'll find yourself doing some extreme ass shit. Like when I was doing urine therapy and shit like that, I didn't feel anything from it, but because people kept making it sound good, they kept telling you this story of why it was good. That's what kept me and it made me want to do it, because I heard a story that sounded good, but my real life experience, I wasn't feeling any better from it. I wasn't feeling like it was right. Intuitively, it didn't feel right, you know. But that's when you cut that off and you start living an alternate reality.
The person came on, but they left.
Huh?
That wanted to come on video, but they left.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're still looking to hear other people's stories as to what made you realize maybe the vegan diet wasn't for you, or the experience you had. We still would love for people to come on camera to share.
Yeah, I just want to show people like a different side, because when I was plant-based, when I was vegan, like I basically tuned out anything that didn't fit in that paradigm. So if anybody was to say something like, well, yeah, animal foods helped me, I would be quick to justify, well, it wasn't the animal foods, it was this. And what actually happened was this. But I want people to hear stories of others who have had experiences with animal foods, because at the end of the day, I think the statement that food is medicine is very true. But it's not just plants. It's also animal foods. It's also mushrooms. It's also all this life that we have here before us. It can serve as medicine in the right context, in the right time. And when we just idolize one kingdom of life and we put it on a pedestal and we detract from our own lineage, of our own heritage, what we came into, and that's when we start seeing these issues, and start seeing people teaming up, and it's the vegans versus the carnivores, and it's just another politicized agenda where it wasn't meant to be that way, you know. It was meant to be used as tools for healing, for sustenance, for thriving in our environment.
Yeah. What about this?
Which one?
This one right here.
Oh, let me. Primal Health Huck asks, have you read Civilized to Death by Chris Ryan? No, I haven't, but I'll definitely add that to the list of books to read. That sounds like a very interesting title. And I would agree that we are definitely reached this point where our own biology, and we've evolved so highly that it's almost working against us, right? Yeah. Because we're so advanced and so intellectual, and we live up here so much that we're starting to suffer from our own creation. Yeah. Let me see. Man, where were we?
Well, right there.
People say all our bodies are different, but I think that obscures the problem. Humans as a physiological entities require meat for optimal function. There is no middle ground.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think that there's definitely some differences, like, from person to person, but not biologically as much as, like, what they inherited in their own personal situations. And they might take longer to reach that conclusion, or their bodies might be able to go longer on certain types of food and restricting themselves for a certain amount of time, whereas somebody else might feel that change immediately, and they might not be able to continue. But yeah, in a general senses, who we are now as human beings over the last 300,000 years has been pretty consistent up until modern times. So when people talking about, oh, we used to be frugivores and that we fell from grace, if that were to be true, that would have been hundreds of thousands of years ago, to where we wouldn't be the species that we are today.
Yeah.
If that was who we still were today. So that argument is like, well, how far back do you want to go? Do you want to take us back to when we were living in the ocean, when we were a species that was still in the ocean? Like I'm just trying to, what's the point that we last seen this work, basically? And that is what I'm tuning into.
Yeah.
Okay. Wait, did he request it or?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm bringing somebody in. If I think so. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Hey,
hello.
how's it going?
How you doing?
Good, good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Big fan of yours. Good to talk to you in real life.
Yeah. Did you have a story you want to share?
Yeah, I was just I was vegan for a long time, for maybe about a year, and I probably didn't really fully understand what the diet was doing to my body.
Yeah.
And just personally for me, I'm not saying that's going to be the experience for everybody, but things like stress tolerance were completely gone.
Yeah.
Um, Energy completely gone, so we're just in a very, very volatile position, you know. And that kind of resulted in me taking a mental breakdown one evening, and that was followed by like extreme anxiety, depression for a long time. Kept
Yeah.
doing vegan, of course, because I falsely believed that that would be my kind of salvation. I went to the doctors. They didn't know any better. They prescribed antidepressant medications, which I
Oh
took.
wow.
And things just kind of went downhill even further. I then developed a condition called tinnitus or tinnitus,
Yeah.
which you've maybe heard of, the ringing in the ears. So now I was just in a really sorry state. Well, and I came across a guy about tinnitus, and he had suggested to start eating meat again. And by this point, I've converted most of my family to veganism with all the propaganda and the documentaries. So I'm trying to bring meat back in, and everybody's going nuts. But I just stuck with it, and I mean, like maybe about 2 months after that, like physical anxiety was completely gone.
Yeah.
The mental side of things was still there. That mental healing takes time, as you probably know, and a lot of people know. It's not something that can just happen overnight or switches off overnight. But undeniably, you know, including animal products back in the diet, so an extremely healing effect. And again, as you probably know, the things our brain needs to function properly, much of it can only be found in animal products. It can't be found in a plant-based diet.
Yeah.
But each to their own. So I'll just say for anybody who's perhaps watching this or experiencing anxiety, depression, there's mountains of evidence now to suggest that eating more more animal-based, or at least including these products in your diet can go a massive way to help improve
Right.
not just your mental health, but your health overall.
Yeah. No, for sure.
And
Yeah. That's great.
the tinnitus as well is almost completely gone, which again is a condition that's mostly considered incurable, that you're just going to need to learn
Right.
to deal with. But that's slowly dissipating as well, which again, the guy gets laughed at for making the suggestion that food is medicine, which again gets scoffed at by Western medicine, but it's definitely true. Definitely true.
That yeah, and it's like really you bring your body back to balance. So when people say like there's one diet or one way of eating that brings it back to balance, it's just like you're not you're not seeking balance. You're just seeking to eat a certain way. So with you, you just needed to come back to balance, and for you, that was incorporating animal foods back into your diet. And for other people, it might be something different. It might be they might already be eating animal foods. They might need a herb, or they might need a mineral supplement
Yeah.
or something. But it's about not excluding anything and being open to utilizing all these different things as tools, and realizing like when your body's experiencing something that you have to know that and make a change accordingly, and not just be like, well, no, we have to stick to it because why? Because of the religious dogma that we've been programmed with, and so I'm glad that people like you are coming on, because I want to liberate people from this dogma and this thing that doesn't allow them to explore and express their own human nature,
Yeah.
and we're being made to feel guilty for being who we are.
Completely. And I watched your live video the other day about liberating, and that is completely, because you hear that a lot, and people like just they can see that something's clearly impacting their health, but just point blank refuse to adjust
Right.
or change. And that's what I'd always just say to people. If you want to try a carnivore diet, I'm not against people eating vegetables. I'm just saying if you want to experience healing, get back to basics, foods that work for you, and then see once you're
Yeah.
healed, start adding the things back in again. And if it works great. I love milk, but I can't drink it because
Yeah.
my body just doesn't agree with my body. So I'm not going to start telling everybody milk's bad because it doesn't work for me. It's just one of those things.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I think, like you said, it's a process. So one of the things I heard about milk is that you can actually acclimate your body to it. So our bodies are very adaptable, right? So that's the reason why a lot of people do feel like things are working for them, is because your body has a certain capacity to be able to adapt to things. 'Cause when I first transitioned, I went from eating pretty much standard American to raw vegan, like instantly.
Mm.
I tell you, I felt like shit, but I didn't want to admit it because I was so convinced with my ideology that, and I was under the impression, and I was told, well, you're just detoxing. You're just detox. That's one of the main things that they use in plant-based conversion is like, well, you're just detoxing. So if you feel like shit, don't worry, you're just detoxing. But I was working in a warehouse, and I just had switched to raw vegan, and I was like losing all this muscle mass. I was just getting all these headaches. I was feeling like shit, but I just kept telling myself, just keep going, just keep going. Eventually, I did get to a point where I was able to stabilize, but you know, people were telling me, and the story I was telling myself actually is that I was detoxing. So it's a very thin line, between reality and what is, and it all depends on our own interpretation. So everybody has their own perspective based off the narrative that they want to sell. So somebody who wants to eat more animal based would probably tell me, look, you need to eat more animal foods, like you can't do this plant based, it doesn't work. While somebody who's plant based will be like, well, just keep going, you're just detoxing, you need to heal. So you see these two perspectives, but at the end of the day, I think that it's wise that we tune into our bodies and let that be the guiding force to what we should be putting into our body.
Completely, and especially regarding our food. I mean, I'm not saying go and experiment with heroin and crack to see if you
Yeah.
function better with it, but eating a steak or drinking some milk or introducing some fruit into your diet, these things aren't going to kill you.
Right.
You're ultimately and potentially going to unlock your best potential through your
Right.
diet. So why
Right.
not experiment? Why not change? And it's funny you should say that because when I was doing vegan, and of course, many of us probably experience when we go vegan, we become ultra evangelical about our veganism. And I'm telling all these people that I'm now on a vegan diet, and of course, oh, how are you feeling? And I was the same. Like I either felt like shit or I didn't feel any different. But again, I just told people, no, the transition's so slow that I probably feel amazing. I just don't realise it. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
I'm probably not aware of how I'm really feeling. I'm really feel good, but I'm interpreting it as feeling shitty.
Yeah, because
But you see the psychological
totally.
detriment that has on us, that where we're trying to convince ourselves of something other than our experience. Our own nervous system is giving us clues and signals, and we're like, no, that can't be it. So
Yeah,
that's for me, that is borderline dangerous when we start
that
to
is
do that.
that is a true danger. Because the same was for my wife. Because again, I'd converted her to veganism by this point. She was a lot more strict. She stuck with it for maybe the best part of 3 years. But by the end, she herself was experiencing a lot of health issues. Again, totally lethargic. The
Yeah.
colour had completely drained from her body. She was breaking out in eczema all over her body. Again, something you mentioned there was the seed oils, which is toxic. Another thing is potentially just as toxic is these plant-based milk alternatives, because they once again contain so much of these seed oils. She cut out the so-called healthy almond milk
Yeah.
and started operating eggs and
Yeah.
some real dairy and chicken into that. Again, she's not a fan of red meat. And after 1 month, her body was completely cleared. People were once again commenting, "Oh, you look really bright-eyed today. You look really, you're glowing again as
Yeah.
compared to what." So definitely, there needs to, as you say yourself, there needs to be balance. It's as simple as that.
Right. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on live. I'm gonna see if anybody else wants to come and share their story.
No problem. Thank you for all you do, mate,
I,
and keep doing it. You're spreading an amazing message.
I appreciate you. How do I?
It's somewhere up there.
Um.
I'll try to turn it off myself now. I'll just leave. Maybe I'll take it off and I'll come back
Yeah.
in.
Yeah. I don't see the button. Okay. Yeah. Does anybody have like their experience that they want to share with animal foods and how that has they've experienced some sort of balancing or healing effect through reincorporating animal foods, after being vegan or vegetarian, or just eating a certain type of animal foods that might have, improved their health. Where's that at?
He's in there with the curtain. He was so quiet. I didn't know what he was doing.
Yeah.
The one thing that I experienced was when I did started incorporating animal foods again, I was feeling guilty. Like I felt like I'm doing something wrong.
Right.
And at first I didn't want people to know that what's wrong?
Let me get 'em.
Okay. I didn't want people to know that I was eating animal foods again because, being vegan is the way. And just like the guy that was talking with Rambo, like I was an advocate at one point in telling people they were wrong for not being vegan. And so then when I started incorporating animal foods again and saw how it turned my health around, I was like, oh crap. And so it took almost a good year to where I was comfortable with, like, you know what? Yes, I do eat meat and I'm perfectly fine with that. Like, to where I was comfortable in my skin and I didn't feel ashamed, or bad because I was eating animal foods. And I noticed that with a lot of people that they, especially those that are on social media, like you will only post the food with the fruits and vegetables, but you're not going to post the meal that has the fish or the eggs on it. And so I think that's something that we need to like just be aware of and know that it does happen at a certain point, because veganism is definitely indoctrinated in our minds as far as what's healthy. But what I've learned that just because you're vegan, it does not mean that you're healthy. I was telling Rambo, I was like, there's two different types of vegans. Vegans that are like, we're doing it for the animals, I ain't worried about health. And then you have those that are vegan because of their health. And so you just have to so if you're one of those people that are being vegan because of your health, eventually you're going to go back to eating meat because your health is either going to, deteriorate and you're going to want meat again. But for those that are all about the animals, they'll eat the Boca burgers and the fake nuggets and the fake
Beyond
food.
burgers.
Yeah.
But recently in time, there has been another type of vegan, which is like the one that's ecologically based. So because they've programmed people that in order to save the world, you have to be plant-based. So now there's people who go on plant-based to save the planet, because what they've been told is that eating plant-based is what's going to be most eco-friendly for people. So that's the angle. So over time, veganism has kind of took every cause and absorbed it. So it absorbed the health cause, it absorbed the animal cruelty cause, it absorbed the ecological cause, the spiritual cause. So over time, this has kind of been snowballing into like the salvation for people.
That's true.
Because it is everything. It represents everything. It represents the spiritual superiority, a moral superiority, health superiority, and ecological superiority. So it's like, this is like the diet that coalesces into everything that people could do to try to be good humans.
Yeah.
So I understand why a lot of people gravitate towards it.
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it. I didn't realize that you have the spiritual vegans, the ecological vegans, economical.
Yeah. So let me see. Okay, let's see. This one has a story.
See, that's the thing.
Vibe said I was guilty too. That's how I know I was a culty vegan.
A culty vegan.
What up, Swan?
Cat is my guy. Hello, peace, Queen. All right, first of all, you already know you're my guy, and I really love the work that you're putting out. I just want to say that first and foremost. It's very groundbreaking and thought-provoking, and it's definitely necessary to balance out the conversation in the flow, right? And ironically, right, because I definitely identify as a plant-based eater, but not for none of those reasons that you named, but I do get that veganism has become more of a religion, right? And when you do say that, there has not been, like I would completely admit that veganism is either a new or a very rare concept, right? But we're talking about veganism. That's the religion behind not abstaining from these dietary choices for a particular reason. But being plant-based being plant-based is something that we've seen throughout all tribes and nature and human nature from the beginning and still till now. But there are many different diets. The same, there are many different religions, and there's many ways to skin a cat, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm first saying about it. Now, what I'm saying about it is that the people who come on, like, there's this big movement now where this it's an anti-vegan movement, right? Where people were
Yeah.
plant-based, so they were vegan, and then they do develop some health issues, and they switch back, and then they start to name about all these extreme things they was doing, like urine therapy and all this other stuff, and say, yeah, this diet didn't work for me. And it's like, huh? Like, what are you talking about? How did diet didn't work when you went from eating burgers to drinking pee? Those are not like scientifically sound dietary transitions. So, what I will say is that
Turn down the volume, because do you have your volume on? Because I can hear myself.
Disconnect me. Now you can hear yourself? Hold on, let me.
Yeah.
You better?
Oh yeah, that sounds much better.
All right, good. All right, so for everybody, although I am a plant-based person, I have an objective perspective that is based off scientific evidence, which we'll get to it too, because our ancestors, even these tribe members, were still scientists. Just in a different way. They just delivered their information in a different way.
Right.
Now,
Look, can I point out something? Because we have to make a distinction, right? When you say plant-based,
yeah,
when you're talking about your plant-based, that's different than the plant-based of traditional people. Because when people hear plant-based, I've known people who never eat no meat, no animal foods, and will call themselves plant-based, right?
For sure.
But traditionally, that would have been a no-no, because come on, you're not going to exclude a animal when you guys catch it just because you're eating a bunch of plants. That's a dogma. That's dogma.
That's definitely
right?
dogma. It's definitely dogma. And it's not even eating.
So
it's not even eating. Hold on. It's not even eating. Think about one of the most, I don't know, like best inventions of our time was the drum, which was made out of sheepskin over a tree trunk, right? So if we wasn't utilizing animals, we would never have made music, which went with the spoken word, which turned into rap. You see, like it definitely goes deep. And I will honestly say that I was caught up in that dogma, but I needed to, because I needed to round out this perspective, just like you did and Faith did. We all needed that, and the world has evolved in a way. But we'll get to that. We'll get to that point in our conversation, right? But go ahead. We'll get to that. We'll build more. Let's keep going.
Right. So I just want to make that distinction, because obviously with the resources that we have now, somebody could be living in a city and never have to eat any animal derived foods whatsoever. But when we talk about traditional people who were living plant-based in certain regions, that we're just saying that the majority of their calories or the access that they had, because it's easier to grow a food or to harvest a berry or a fruit, it requires less energy. That doesn't mean that the meat wasn't prized, it was just harder to acquire. You know, rather than if you can just go and collect fruits and stuff, that would be easier. So calorically, if you didn't want to be challenged and expend a lot of energy, the fruits would be your best bet. But if you had access to meat, that would obviously provide a lot of nutrition for the community that you would want to have access to. So when we're having plant-based, it becomes a difference between how we eat and also the psychological aspect behind it, that is coming from two different places, right? So when modern people plant-based, it's more of it can be, what I've seen most of it is a dogma, to where like they won't touch animals because there's a moral issue there with animal foods that they don't feel good or comfortable about. Rightfully so, because most of them aren't getting food for themselves. They're just going to a grocery store, so they're disconnected from the process.
Right.
But what I'm saying is that traditionally, people would have also seen plants with that same regard, so they would have also felt weird about not having a relationship to the plants either. But there's no distinction in the modern time, so people could have unlimited irreverence to plant foods, meaning they could eat all the plant foods they want, never feel grateful, never have a relationship to it, and nobody will ever say anything. But if somebody's eating animal foods, they will demand reverence. You better be grateful that animal died for you. So there's a whole different perspective of looking at it, to where our ancestors, life was life, and it was all sacred, uniformly and universally.
I agree. Listen, and even for people listening, like who do have that like unlimited reverence or forgiveness for plant foods, y'all gotta understand when a food is hybridized or spliced, they split the plant open, put a seed from another plant and put it in there. if you want to talk about raping, that's rape too. Like they're literally rape, or what we did with marijuana.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
And how we do pervert plants in that way. But here's what I will say. That's what I'm talking about, plant-based. So now when we look into the cultures who are performing the best, the blue zones in the States or around the world, these people will eat a predominantly 80 to 90% diet based out of plant foods or plant-derived foods, and they do have animal foods in there, right? So just like you're saying, traditionally, there would have been no diet. You would eat whatever's available in your environment, but you would have it at a rate because you wouldn't be able to go to a grocery store and get slabs of meat. You would have to kill that meat, break it down,
Right.
and then feed the whole community that, which means you would probably get this big of a piece, and then it wouldn't have that many effects on the top 5 killers that we now see in our traditional society.
Right.
So,
Hey,
so
one thing
what's happening? Hold on, let me say this point. What's happening to a lot of people who actually are vegan and then they start to experience problems is that they, for one, may do extreme things. For two, you're not doing enough research because you don't know about healthy fats. You're not getting a good micronutrient profile. There's a bunch of, you may not even be getting enough calories, right? But your point would be, well, why should you even have to know that? Why would a human have to put it into an app and know what they're supposed to be eating? Like you should intuitively know, right? With your point, which I agree with, but we both have to be objective and look into our environment and see that that's not where we at no more. And where we at right now, we have to utilize the science in order for us to kind of like condense and use the best efficacy that we possibly can to create the diet that's going to better suit us for our environment.
Right. Well, yeah, my focus is more about putting myself in that environment and creating that situation for myself, because that's my own personal goal. I know like people will say, well, not everybody could do that, but that's just my approach, you know. That's how I approach. But one of the things I wanted to point out is one thing that stuck with me when I was plant-based, and I once watched a video, and it was a traditional person from Mexico, and he was talking about how the natives there ate a lot of plant foods, and he said a lot of people would tell you that they were vegan or they were plant-based. He said they ate animal foods, and even though it was a small percentage, they were very detrimental and important to them. Yeah. So you can't take that away, is what I'm saying. Like, even if it is a small percentage, taking that away would be detrimental to that, because it's part of the package. You don't just take out, even if it is 5-10%, it's part of it. And another point that I want to make is that somebody that was commenting that they have ancestors from Okinawa, and traditionally pork is in their diet. That's a traditional staple in their diet, pork and fish. And so they were saying that the age of life expectancy is actually declining as they're going more influenced by modern plant-based agendas or cultures or vegan.
I've seen that too.
That's what they say. Obviously, I'm just speaking out of secondhand experience at this point. But I just want to point out like that people forget to leave that out. Like they think because it's a smaller percentage that it's irrelevant.
Not vital. Yeah, it's not vital.
Right.
And I too would disagree with that, because like I said, coming from a vegan diet and being a vegan with those religious dogmas that were attached to that, and then moving to incorporating some animal products into my diet, then that did allow me to have a more balanced perspective. Because what was happening to me was that maybe I was having issues from my microbiome, right? So the plant proteins that I needed, like the legumes, and like you're saying, rice and beans, the legumes, a lot of those problems with the fiber in the plant, it didn't agree with how my microbiome had shifted. So in order for me to get a protein source, a fat source that did not have fiber, that would not upset the microbiome in my small intestine, I needed to eat a animal derived product that did not have fiber, so it could get. And then that helped me understand that there was a more balanced perspective that we aren't taking, even with veganism. And I still felt bad when I was transitioning. I felt terrible when I started eating fish. I was hiding it. I wasn't telling nobody because I was like, man, I'm vegan, right? But then I still realized it's about what you do. Just like these diets or these groups that we're talking about, who are high performing and high functioning and have the longest life, right? Like those blue zones in Okinawa, they said that they met a family there with 8-9 brothers and sisters, and between them they had 900 years. So the whole brothers and sisters was all 100 years old, right? Mm-hmm. But even still, they still are incorporating some animal foods into their diet, which is what I'm for. The thing about the post, right? Why me and you always have discourse is because that post kind of draws out the anti-vegans who are looking to jump on a movement because they've been wronged by something, and they do not have the opportunity to see the balanced perspective that, oh no, we're still saying plants is the shit. It's just that you shouldn't be like abstaining things from your diet based off of dogma, because you may be missing out on key vital nutrients and the spiritual and ecological presence of that, where you're looking into your environment to see like how can you get in tune with it, because higher life forms are going to eat lower life forms, and we're the highest life form, but the earth is also a life form, and when we die, that life form is going to eat us too. So higher life forms is always
right. No, for sure. And so for me, like sometimes it's important you have to have something to bring people in. So obviously this discussion is really nuanced, and I want to bring balance. And sometimes when you have such heavily influence of a certain thing, when you mimic that on the other side, that's kind of how you get to balance, right? Because with veganism, it's like, yo, murder, meat is murder. So when I say like, well, tell your story about how you heal from animal foods, that's like, oh shit, like that's, I didn't know that was a thing. People don't realize. So now I'm coming to the balance now where we're having this conversation where we discuss the nuances. Like, I'm not talking about, some people are, like some people definitely here in the room probably are advocates for animal-based diet to where you eat nothing but animal foods. That's not what I'm talking about. But I know there is people who identify highly with carnivorous, and it's just that seesaw effect. They might have been vegan and they were all the way to the other side to where there's nothing but meat. But that's why when I say I'm omnivore, conscious omnivory, that's the balance to me, is to look at your environment and see where you're at. And depending on that, the ratios of plants to animals to mushrooms, all that's going to vary depending on your ecology, if you are in tune with that ecology. Obviously, in a simulated environment like a city where food is being brought in, like you said, doing research and taking other things into consideration, you might have to do that because you're living in a kind of artificial environment. So, even blue light, all the things that are affecting you, you can do research and find things that'll combat that to balance that out in that environment. I just choose not to even be in the presence of that and try to get to a more natural environment so that I already start off with, a more neutral playing field.
I agree. So now that we've rounded that perspective out, and and the audience listening, you see this conversation is much more nuanced. When we look at how most of the people became vegan or plant-based, right? And I definitely speak for this community, the Black community, where most of our sound bites and clips came from Dr. Sebi, and Dr. Sebi was making these, seriously, Dr. Sebi was making these very controversial or like spectacles of statements. And what that was meant to do was cause controversy because there was Black people who are drastically suffering in all of these dietary, like getting caught up in this dietary tsunami. He did that on the extreme to spark them to go in the opposite way. But this dude was a marine engineer. He was no fool. He was a genius, really. But he knew that he had to make a lot of those statements in order for people to kind of like jump on the opposite extreme. So even if they were extreme, they still were seeing results. So maybe even if they went vegan for 5 years, they did see results. Maybe they capped out and then they add animal foods back and then they'll hate animal foods. But what they won't realize is that if it wasn't for that spark, they may not have even gotten back to equilibrium because they were headed down a crash course. You see what I'm saying?
So he was doing kind of the same thing I'm doing, where he was pushing them to an extreme because he knew at some point they were going to come back to balance because they're so far off that he's like, well, we need to be extreme to even get to a balanced place. Because to me, like a lot of stuff he was pushing wasn't necessarily sustainable, because like you look at the foods that he does tell you, he's like burdock root and sea moss. It's not a big list of food, actually like that will fill you up and make you be able to sustain that over a long period of time. But that was more of a healing diet to me. Dr. Sebi's diet and approach was to heal people. But what he forgot to tell people is that once you heal, like animal foods can play a role in your life again. And like he was eating fish, and I'm sure that the people that he learned from were eating wild game minimum, or they were eating wild fish, wild caught fish and stuff like that. But he didn't talk about that because I don't know. To me, one point is like it's kind of hard to sell that as a supplement. Like, but the herbs, you can bottle up a herb and send it to people. So that makes it easier to incorporate as what you are recommending to people. And B, like he just knew people weren't there they needed so much healing that he just felt like they just got to go through that process before they even start thinking about that food again.
For sure. And that's why it was so necessary. So then there's people who don't get that nuance. And so when they quote these things or they're debunking these things, you don't get that this dude was a marine engineer, yo. Like you can't be a dummy and do that. Like he was actually testing these herbs and testing foods and sending them to laboratories. We are going to YouTube University where we're listening to anecdotal or information at best and incorporating that into our lives and then saying whatever, because on a grander scale, the earth doesn't give a fuck about what we do. It's all about if you understand how to better suit yourself for the environment that you're in, right? So all even animals that will be considered herbivores are most times opportunists and will eat, you know, even a chicken will drop an egg and sometimes they will eat the egg. Like the people that eats in the chicken will eat the egg, right? So we definitely see this in nature at all times, right? But there is a predominant dietary recommendation for each species. And so and that's where we at with it, and that's where the conversation now that like that's why I do love that because I don't take it personal. Like when you because I incorporate, I understand like the main balance, but when I see that, I can see like a lot of people in the comments like, yeah, even the dude that was talking, veganism just messed me all up. No, it didn't mess you up, bro. You was probably like eating your feces or something like that. Like you wasn't that. That's not science, yo. That's not science. Like there's science out there now, right? And some people say, well, you know, like, well, our traditional views compared to science and shit like that. And it's like, no, these dudes were scientists too. Like your traditional ancestors, you will be able to go to a scientist back in the ancient tribe and be able to talk about things with them now that we know about, like chemistry and all these other things. And so
they had in a different form, they would express it differently, but
they
for
use
sure they had an
mnemonic
awareness.
devices and they just use like mnemonic devices and stories in order for them to tell a more complex story that actually has lasted way longer. But our environment and our species have evolved. Well, so we say, right? We evolved to a point now where the people living in this environment in the matrix do need to be a lot more health conscious than we would be in nature. And so that is the message that you know, Dr. Sabi, that even I still push, because I understand that it's about just well rounding out your information and doing more study in order to know what best suits you and your environment. And we can change for any environment that we're in, and the earth does not care about that.
Right. And so, yeah, that's true. But like my personal approach is like, okay, so Dr. Sebi's trying to heal people in this environment. So it's like the whole fish in the water. Do you give a fish something different to eat, or do you clean this environment, you know, and do you change this environment? So that's my focus, and why a lot of times I'm like, I don't want to put emphasis on supplementation, all these things. I want to connect people back to their ecology. So it doesn't matter if you're North America to me. If you go hunt some wild venison and get some venison, to me, like, you doing much better than somebody who hasn't had that experience, or who's just shopping plant-based from the grocery store and is completely disconnected from that process, because psychologically that's doing something for you that you might not ever be able to understand until you have that experience, until you go forage.
But I agree with you. But the thing is, I agree. The point that we're both going to agree on is that these niggas is not about to do that. They're not leaving from this place to go into nature.
That's why I'm not talking to them. I'm talking to the people who are on this path. So that's the misunderstanding that a lot of people somebody in the comments has said, I don't think you should be pushing this narrative. And it's like, it's not for everybody, bro. I know some people are going to go take the route that you're taking. It might be an environment and choose to mitigate things within the environment.
I'm not going to be here long term. I just understand that.
But look, check this out. The same, because when being in that environment, I was probably the same, more towards the mindset that you're from. But then coming to this environment, it changes you. And a lot of people that also had and shared the same mindset that I came from, being very dogmatic and plant-based, or just not wanting to incorporate animal foods, period, when they get to like somewhere where an isolated island like where we're at, the environment itself is heavily influential, and you start to see, well, what really makes sense? Because think about all the food that's here, 90% of it is shipped in. So if I say, well, let me just eat local, what's available in this natural environment, that is going to be a different list to them, you know. So it's going to be fish because we're by the ocean. It's going to be, you know, fruits because we're in a tropical environment. Fruits grow easily here, and whatever mammals are available here. So when you start looking at it from that way, it changes what you actually have access to.
Yeah, that's right, man. And so yeah, for all our viewers who are like looking to transition to their lifestyle, that's something that you're going to be looking out for. Well, while you're here, and if you're planning to stay in the States or any of these matrix or these grids, you're going to have to account for, like all the other environmental toxins or, stimuli that you're being subjected to. But definitely like going into, a more natural environment is the key. But I just don't want us to lose focus of, like coming here and then going back to being in the dark ages or the caveman. Like we need to take if we were smart, we would take the best of what this place has to offer and kind of like do it in a safer, greener way. That way because we have to have a better perspective with it. Right. We have to heal from like thinking that like being modern is bad or new age is even bad, because things have to evolve and change. And like even when you showed that video, it said, oh, this ancient tribe, and it said all this good stuff about them, but it says they're in danger of being. Oh, why would you be in danger if you were the best? Oh, because you're going to get overran by somebody who's doing something completely different.
Right.
You're going to get taken out
but
by
at the same time, the people that overrun you, they're overrunning themselves. You know what I'm saying?
That's
like,
definitely true.
But in the process, yeah, you get taken out with it too. So I agree. Like, I think it's a balance that we have to come to between modern technology and ancient wisdom,
Right.
and kind of merging these two worlds so that we can perpetuate. Because if we can keep going on the route that we're going, it's too highly intellectual, and it's not enough connected to the earth to realize that we need to preserve the earth, because we lost that connection. So we're like, well, if we just fuck this shit up, we can just go to another planet. That's how we think, instead of just being like, well, you know what I'm saying? So yeah,
that's
man.
right.
I'm gonna see if anybody wants to come in and share their story. Anybody else?
Yeah.
It was a good bill.
Yeah, we're going to do it again. We're going to do it again, Faith. It was good talking to y'all. I appreciate it. Everybody
right.
Looking, we're going to build it again. Let's keep it going. I fuck with you.
Yeah, for sure, yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Peace. Let's see.
Okay, he turned it off.
Okay. Yeah, if anybody else wants to come in and share the story, I know this was kind of like a tangent, but I think it was good. It was a good build. And we were talking about some things that, from different perspectives. And I know we have common things that we share and also things that we might not agree on, but it's okay. We can still have these conversations. And that's the thing that I want to advocate for, is to be able to be objective about information and not get in our emotions and think that what we eat is the only thing of what we are, who we are. Yeah. So we have to separate from that. At some point we have to realize that we were who we were before we changed diets, and we'll be that afterwards. So just have that buffer between you and the way you eat. Use it as a tool, but don't identify too strongly with it, because then you'll challenge information with emotion and not with objective fact.
And this person here, Vegan Fitness, said most people put down veganism because they failed at it. It's not that, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that we are putting down veganism. What we are advocates for, if something is not working, change. Your body knows better than you. And with Vegan Fitness, I'm sure that your mama and you are doing great, but there are some people out here that aren't doing great, and they're feeling a certain way because of people like you probably making them feel bad because they choose to do something else. It is okay to choose to do something else. Okay, you might have tried veganism and it didn't work for you. It's okay. You can sit here all day and say, well, you didn't do it right. It's not about right or wrong. It's about what your body is telling you what it needs. And we are advocates of letting people know that veganism is not the only way. It's just like telling the Christians, Jesus is not the only way. Like, stop trying to convert people in the direction that you're going when there is different paths to the truth. And that's what we're advocates for, of being honest with yourself, telling the truth with yourself. And we just don't want people to get into this mindset that if you're not vegan, there's something wrong with you, because that's just not true. And my husband has done many videos and content showing you that really, if you go back into indigenous times, they don't know anything about veganism. And even when we went to Mexico, we was in Central America, when we went to these restaurants and being like, yeah, we're vegan, they'd be like, what's that? What you talking about? Like, we don't like no meat place. Like, why? Like, they was just like, it was like, what's wrong? Like, they didn't even know how to prepare a vegan meal, because that is something that is not natural to them. So that's what we're promoting. It's just be aware.
And at the end of the day, like, I don't want to have this disconnect, like, to where we can't relate to one another as humans because of the way we eat. Because we have friends that are vegan, and we don't have no ill intent to them. Like, we want to maintain that connection, and still be able to have this discourse in a healthy way. Because at the end of the day, like I said, it goes deeper than what we eat and put into our bodies. So we have to realize that we still here on planet Earth together, and everybody's trying to figure out what the hell's going on, what's best for them, and what they should be doing. And so when we, create this thing in between us through food that doesn't let us connect to one another, I think that's more detrimental than any diet could be.
Is he okay?
No, he's just spraying inside the window.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, there's somebody.
Um.
Oh, okay. Oh yeah, somebody wanted to know. Could you explain dogma?
Yeah. So we have No, the one says, can you elaborate on dogma? Yeah, dogma is basically when you have a belief and you don't want to, you deviate from that, no matter if you're presented any contrary information or anything that disproves what you believe, you're going to stick to it no matter what. And dogma in nature does not really exist because, like, Tuan was saying, some of these animals that are classified as herbivores, they'll often be caught or documented eating meat. They'll be documented eating things that go outside of their dogmatic diet that we put them under. Like, we categorize them as this, but truly, objectively speaking, they don't have that thing that's going to stop them from doing what they need to do to survive and to secure their own existence. So I talk about, give an example. If aliens came and observed humans, what would they observe humans as? Would they be like, well, humans should be frugivores, they should be eating only fruit? No, they would be like, well, we observe humans to eat from all kingdoms of life. We see them eating animals, we see them eating plants, we see them eating mushrooms. So they would have an objective perspective of it, because we're sitting within this. We idealize and romanticize theories about how it should be, rather than just seeing things for what they are. So that's the way I think about it. If somebody else came and observed us, what would they say about us objectively?
Yeah. So would anybody like to come on to share, like, their experience or their opinion? Like,
I think we got another question. So Primal Health Hug said, do you think a return to our native environments and lifestyles is necessary to reach our equilibrium? I think that it's going to be a big driving force behind connecting people back to a way of life which we know to be the most sustainable. And that's what a lot of people don't talk about. Like, these traditional cultures that eat animal foods and all this, they're the most sustainable on the earth. It's not some vegan in New York City that's the most sustainable. It's like they're way more sustainable than anybody, because they're just relying on the environment, So I do think that it plays a big role. And the more we can get people to connect with the earth, grow food from the earth, have a relationship with the earth, that's naturally going to bring out qualities in us that are going to restore balance to ourselves and, as a species as well, when we do that. So I think that that's important. Like, and it don't matter where you're at. Like I said, you could be in North America and Europe, but just having these experiences in natural environments is going to mold our minds into equilibrium. Nah, vegan fitness, we're not trying to convince people to eat meat. We're trying to convince people to listen to their bodies and be intuitive. And if they feel like that's something that they need to do, if their body's saying like, bro, we need some animal foods, to feel liberated, to be able to access that without guilt. At the same time, if somebody feels like they need to refrain from eating meat for a while, if they feel like their body's sounding like they need to take a cleanse or fast from certain things, do that. I'm not giving you no regimen. I'm just giving you awareness of what's available and what traditionally has been done, so that you can make your own decisions for you. I restore all autonomy and sovereignty to you, for you to delegate that to yourself and be able to make the best decisions for you. I don't want to have any part of that. I'm just making you aware of what's available. So yeah, let me see. Got another question. Oh, they just want to know my perspective on it. Someone
Oh,
commented, unhealthy mentalities have created modern civilization, and the way of living is killing everything on the planet. Um, yeah, I mean, it's a process. Like the way I look at it, like historically, this all started from like deviation from nature, but is it, like I said, the things that were so positive at some point, they begin to work against us. So we domesticated the food supply. So at that time, it was like, oh, dope, we got an abundance of food. But then the food became less and less quality because in order to domesticate plants to grow how you want them to grow, you have to suppress certain genes that 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 facilitate certain compounds that might have been beneficial to where the, say, like for instance in the blueberry, might not have as much antioxidants as the wild blueberry does, because the domesticated blueberry had to be shaped to be able to grow in certain environments, and it lost some of the medicine, right? So these things that we're not seeing over time have accumulated to create the kind of detrimental situations that we're not experiencing. So we domesticate food, it lowers the quality of the food, but it allows for a surplus. This surplus allows for people to force labor, aka slavery, to build civilizations. So once these civilizations established, that's when um, we see things like vegetarianism, and these restrictions come because there's an abundance of resources. So now people can have a pick and choose of what they want to eat, strictly what they strictly want to eat. So following from that, we move all the way to where we have a hyper focus, or hyper concentrated amount of resources that this trans global trade system has allowed for. So now people can literally go into a grocery store and not even be vegetarian, but be vegan, and not even vegan, but raw vegan, to where they're eating fruits that are available year round in an environment that isn't even growing those fruits whatsoever. So all these things that we created stem from our disconnection to nature and not to want to adhere to the natural order of things. So there is some validity to that. We've created this out of imbalance and disconnection from our environment. Yeah, Lucas, if you want to come on, just send the request and I'll bring you on.
you could. I think you can request them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know what he said though.
We're gonna find out.
Yeah, hi, how
Hey,
you going?
well, how's it going?
Hi. Hi, yeah, hi. Yeah, so I was I got ill, I guess, eating more modern stuff, and I was I was at uni, and it was like all kind of plant-based sort of, I don't want to say propaganda, but it was just like all the uni students, it was like the hip thing to do, you know, like there were like plant-based
Can you not
establishments.
can you stop for a
Sorry, yeah,
second? Because the
yeah,
camera's
yeah,
moving and it's like it's hard to
yeah.
listen.
Yeah, is that better?
Yeah, it's better. Just try to hold it
Yeah.
still so that
Apologies.
we can.
Yeah. I was walking. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, and it was sort of like that was the messaging. It was like plant based and stuff, and I was ill. And I you know, I went down many furrows, many different health furrows, many you find many different personalities and stuff. But like,
Yeah.
yeah, meat became like, it's also, when you look at these things, like, I don't know, yeah, meat's a very kind of intuitive turn to go back to, and it took away a lot of my symptoms. And I know that I just know that, like, yeah, but you know, there's even things like anti-nutrients, like this leaves and stems of plants don't particularly want to, they need that material to photosynthesize, like they
Yeah.
don't particularly want to be eating that part of the plant, and that's gonna, like, sure, your microbiome like might be able to incorporate some of these like there's that species of bacteria, oxalobacter, that degrades oxalates and stuff. So you know, they would probably evolve to be able to handle, you know, lectins and phytates and stuff like this, but it's not as clear cut as this. And what I kind of get fed up with is that it's almost a distortion to think that violence isn't baked into reality. And I think that permeates, when that permeates your whole field, you become distorted in a way, because, and like, you can't see things clearly if you think that like violence isn't everywhere. Like if you go follow like an account like Nature is Metal or something, and you
Right.
watch I'm not here promoting violence, I'm just saying it's baked in.
Well, we have to
And
kind of observe the energy that these words carry, like in the perception of people. So when you say
yeah,
violence, and I was talking about this in the live when somebody said, you don't have to murder animals. So murder holds a different connotation, right? Because
yeah,
when you think about murder, you're thinking about somebody maybe with a gun or somebody stabbing somebody. And
right,
it's not out of procuring food, but they use these words. So even when you're saying violence, like, I don't think that these animals are being malicious in their actions more than they are just surviving, right? They're surviving and
absolutely,
they're hunting. So we have to be careful with the vocabulary, because they want to use the words that paint these actions to be the most negative. So they'll say like, you murder animals for food, call it what you want, but it's murder. But we
but
have to know
yeah,
that there's a difference, right? Well, if you
absolutely,
harvest the
absolutely,
animal from the natural environment, yes, it dies. Yes, you kill it. But murder is alluding to just doing it for a reason other than utilizing its body. It's just
of
killing
course,
and leaving it there. That's
yeah,
murder. So,
but
so I think it's interesting, the language, and
absolutely,
especially you say you were in university, so I know that's one of the most highly politicized and politically
yeah,
charged environments.
yeah. Well, the thing, malicious, like you said, maliciousness adds a different connotation to it. Whereas I'm saying that there's just like baked into life, whether it's like just like a vine wrapping itself around a tree, or you can't really, if you, in a way, I think, yeah. But I'm not out here saying that. I understand that veganism, like, my dad's partner is a vegan, and it's a good approach. Like it was initially a good approach to, if you're protesting factory farms and industrial farming
Right.
and stuff. This was like an obvious route to go down, and stuff. And recently there's been like a revival in sort of primal health and all this stuff. So we're getting a better idea of what ancestrally consistent
Like
sort
the whole
of
story.
patterns of eating are. But I can respect and I can appreciate if vegans, like, initially, earlier on, went vegan because factory farming is obscene. It's just totally obscene. But then
Right.
but then but then we but then like, it's just undeniable that, like, what that animal foods and just like a dense nutrient carriers, and there's no anti-nutrients, and just like, so it's, yeah. But I was very pleased with seeing your account pop up, because I felt like there needed to be a bridge between that, like, people could see that, I don't know, you were being ecologically integrated, but you were also had the nuance to not push meat, but to be like, okay with it. There was something that needed to emerge like that, and that was
Right.
funny that when I saw your account, that was a good development, as far as I can see, in the social media ecosystem, in the landscape, because people
Yeah.
can, because you're going to be a bit of a bridge. I see. I can.
For sure, and
Yeah.
that's I think that's my purpose, and that's what I
Yeah.
naturally take towards, just connecting these two worlds that seemingly are opposing, but creating a middle ground to where we could. And that's my whole thing is about balance. It's all about staying balanced and stuff. So
Mm,
I'm definitely not pushing exclusively anything, and I just want
yeah.
people to be aware of what exists, man. But yeah, thank you for coming on here and sharing your story.
Thank you.
Yeah. No problem. Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna see if somebody else wants to come on.
Sure. Sure.
All right.
How do I get off this thing?
The X.
That's to that.
No, I'm talking to him.
Oh, okay.
But your X is hidden from the lens.
Is it this X?
I don't know.
No, that ends the live.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just have right. Anything else? Anybody else want to come on live? This has been a really good discussion. I'm glad that we are able to have like a civilized conversation, even when people, I mean, some people I know are very adamant about their point or about interpreting what we're saying in their own way. But yeah, it's really bigger than like these diets. Like, that's why I want to remind people like we're still got love for you as a human. Don't matter how you eat. Like, we're not making that be everything.
Yeah.
This is just a conversation about the nuance of the way we eat. But ultimately, like, we can still, have these civil conversations that relate to one another if that's different from person to person. So let me read Jagged Mountains because they had written a comment. Um, Let me read some of these comments actually. Heidi says, "When I kill my chickens, there is no violence involved. There is reverence." Yeah, and I think that's something that you would probably have to experience, to actually understand, because we're so disconnected from harvesting food for ourselves that most people would be like, "Nope, that's murder. Like, that's violent. That's this." But I think we don't see a lot of the violence that takes place to even get plant foods to you. A lot of the so-called violence, right? Or a lot of the in transit to get food to you, like, there's a process. And because you can't see it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist or that things aren't happening that you don't agree with, you know. So Jagged Mountain says, "I was vegetarian for almost 10 years. I started eating meat again in 2019, and my health, especially mentally, has improved tremendously. And the energy levels are up, and I was able to get pregnant for the first time. I was trying to conceive in my 20s when I was vegetarian and was not able to. A couple years into changing my perspective on food, I'm pregnant now." Oh,
Yay.
congratulations.
Congratulations.
Yeah, and see, I keep seeing this pattern again. When it comes to reproduction, like,
Yeah.
this becomes a more vital component. People are able to a lot of times keep these ways of eating, but when it comes to reproducing, either when mothers have children or they're expecting, that's when things shift. Like you said, when you got pregnant,
Yeah.
your body was like, "Animal foods, meat, please. Like, I need that." That building structure to bring life into this world. So I think that that's kind of a clue, indication that our bodies do go through cycles and stages, and different times might require different things, and we have to be able to and willing to adjust.
Yeah, and even there's stories the opposite of that. People that went vegan, their health did improve. They did get pregnant, but that's one side. And then you have the other side when they incorporate the meats back into their diet, that their health improved. They get pregnant. So it's just everybody's body is different, and you just have to just be aware of that and
Or
don't
everybody's situation is different.
everybody's
Right.
situation. Because I think that if I would have never gotten pregnant, I probably would still be vegan.
Right.
Like I probably would have, because I didn't have no issues. I wasn't craving meat, and I was perfectly fine being vegan. And the situation that we were in, that was like our doctrine. But as soon as I got pregnant, it's like, I don't care what you believe in. Your body don't care what you believe in. Your body know what it needs. Like, and I could have been, a stickler about, like, no, I'm not eating it. And I don't know what would have happened to our son. He might not have developed properly because he was nutrient deficiency because of my ass.
Right.
So I'm thankful for my choice, and I just want to put my story out there for any woman that's on the fence, to where she's like, I know, but I don't want to do it. But it's like, this was my story, and this is what helped me. And and I'm smarter, because don't you realize, Rambo, before, like, we went vegan, our diet choices were kind of like, and then we was not aware of food. But then when we became vegan, it made us aware of our food. It made us aware of our environment almost. So now, going back to eating animal products, I have a higher awareness of my food, a connection with my food. I understand it. So I'm making better choices than I did when I was in my 20s, because I didn't know anything about food. But now that I'm in this part of my life, I understand how food works. And this is why, when I was in my 20s, when I was a teenager, why I had acne and all those things, because I was mixing a lot of foods that should have not been mixed. But now that I'm in this part, I pretty much can eat anything, but I know I can't eat anything at the same time.
Right.
Like, I can't do that. I don't eat candy. Like, I'm very careful about is how much fat I'm eating, the processed foods. I barely eat any processed foods. When we were younger and before the vegan movement, we were eating a lot of processed foods, and that's what was fucking us up. It was not the meat; it was the processed foods that we were eating that was messing us up.
Right.
Along with the meat.
Right. And so it's like you're eating this complete mix of foods, and then you change diet, and then you attribute it to that diet. But in reality, a lot of it was just you taking out all the bullshit that you were consuming on a daily basis. So it just, people like to like take a W for their team because they're on the vegan team. They're like, oh, it was a vegan, the plants, they healed you.
Yeah.
Like, come on. And with animal foods too, like, oh, it was because of the meat. But I think that these all things have their place. Like, for instance, like an organ meat might have a certain amount of a mineral. So you could eat a little bit of this organ meat, or you could eat a bunch of this plant food that might have the same mineral. Yeah. And they'll both get you to the same place that your body needs to be. And they're both useful tools, and they're both right. Yeah. So we need to look at it more in terms of that way, where like we can utilize different things to get us to the same place, to reach that same balance and equilibrium. And we also have to ask ourselves, well, what is your goal? Like for me, a lot of omnivory is about sovereignty. Like I think that if you're trying to depend less on the system, just being open to utilizing all the kingdoms of life is going to get you there much quicker, because you can have chickens, you can get eggs, you can go fishing, you can go hunting, you can grow fruit, you can grow vegetables, you can do all of it, and your calorie needs will be met a lot quicker than if you were to like take out a whole kingdom or say I'm only going to eat plants. That's going to restrict you from reaching that goal faster. So when we're talking about sovereignty, that's kind of more the point that I'm coming at it from, to where I see omnivory as a very vital tool for human sovereignty, to not have to depend on the government, the system, for our own nutrition.
And for me, I want food to be fuel for my body, energy. I'm looking at it as, is this the proper fuel for my apparatus that I'm eating? Because sometimes I have an emotional relationship with my food, where I want to eat what feels good,
right?
But no, I want to eat what is sufficient, for my body.
Okay, let me see. Read some of these. Is picking unripe fruit to ship to the States in mass clearing not harmful to the trees? I think we're being choosy with what is violent. I mean, and not even just with fruit. I mean, you could talk about the soil and the pesticides, herbicides, all that's used to grow plants quickly and large to get them to the States and all that. It's a whole system, that is integrated to that in that process. Heidi said cheese was a sacred food for alpine people and reserved for pregnant women. That's dope. Vibes said it was impossible to be vegan and pregnant.
Vibes, how many years were you vegan before you got pregnant? I forgot. I didn't know if you said it was 10 years, 2 years. I couldn't remember.
Twan said y'all was eating avocados and potatoes every day. He was starving you people.
No, Twan. When at that point that's when I started cooking for the tribe. And I was cooking the beans and the rice and and the soups, and we started incorporating more food.
Vibe said finding your balance takes extreme polarity sometimes. For sure, yeah. I think that is why we see what we see, because people have to go all the way one way, and then go all the way another way, and then come like to the center of balance.
I'm happy about my choices. I'm happy that I was really extreme at one point in my life, because I definitely learned a lot, and just getting balance. But then even when you get to balance, there's going to be a point in your life where you're going to go extreme another way. It's just the cycle.
Chase said, we were vegans before my wife got pregnant and she wasn't feeling too well. She craved fish, and from that moment she felt better than before. Yeah, and it's something so simple, but I think that's why I say like life humbled me into this position, because I was so dogmatic, and life was like, no, like you don't have all the answers. So just something so simple is like, okay, maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. Maybe it's bigger than the box that I put myself into, and that's all it was. It was simple. Like it wasn't like this protocol that we're talking about. You're in therapy and fasting for 40 days. It was just like, no, just eat that food right there, those eggs right there.
Yeah.
Grass-fed meats, milks, eggs, are challenging to find and more expensive, but worth it. Found a great Mennonite farm, hoping to get chickens next year. Grow a lot of my own fruit and veggies. Yeah, that's dope. Yeah, I know the Mennonites, like, and like a lot of those communities, like the Amish and stuff, they're like self-sustainable, and they not vegan, obviously. Like they're growing, animals and raising animals and all these things, because in order for them to exist as a isolated group of people, they have to utilize all kingdoms of life, and that's the angle that I come at it from. Is more about sovereignty. Small mammals turned up on factory farms. Yep, that's another factor. All right. Later, Heidi. I once heard you say milk is liquid meat. Can you speak more on that? Oh yeah, okay. So a lot of people talk about vegetarian people that have existed over time. So one of the points that I said in my video was like, okay, they're not vegan, they're vegetarian, and milk is essentially liquid meat. So let's think about this. What we consider the muscles of the animal, meat. What do we consider the organs of the animal? Meat. The glands, all these things, we consider them as meat.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about a liquid that is derived from the animal's blood, that's pulling nutrients from the blood from inside the body and concentrating that, to me, it's not a stretch to say that's liquid meat, because it's coming from the animal and it's concentrating the nutrients from the bloodstream, which is the same thing that feeds all the muscles and all the organs that we call meat.
Yeah.
So to me, liquid milk is essentially liquid meat, and it has a high density of nutrients to be able to back that statement up. And so when you're talking about raising a child and they're breastfeeding and you're building up this meat suit, what do you think the liquid that's coming out of your breast is to build up this meat suit?
Some of them babies be a little fat and chunky off of that milk liquid or whatever you
Right.
call it. Yes. Y'all, there is this plant right here. I don't know if y'all can see it, but it is like...
It's pollinating.
It's pollinating, but it's like, it looks like cotton. And it was just like hitting us in our faces.
I know.
Like,
I swallowed one of them.
oh, you did?
Yeah, one in my mouth.
He swallowed the seed, y'all.
I'm about to give birth.
He's...
Bob said 3 years.
Yes. Yeah, Vice was three
She said,
years
I was
vegan.
the first one to break the vegan cycle, crying for chicken when we found out I was vegan.
Yes, because I was with us when we was in Hawaii, and like all she wanted was chicken wings. She did not care. It didn't have to be from the organic place. It just better be chicken wings of how she wanted to cook. She did not, like, that's what I'm saying. When you're pregnant, it's like you don't care because you have something growing inside of your body that is controlling everything, and it is getting what it needs. And so, vibes, that's what I'm saying. This is very common for a lot of women, that they need something else. They need something different. And once you had those chicken wing vibes, you didn't even eat meat after that. You was like, I'm good. Like, I'm good. Like, her body just needed that. Like, I don't know if you ate fish after that, but you definitely was just like, okay, I'm good. I just needed a chicken wing.
Yeah. Primal Health Huck said, what ages are you guys? So
we're 0. It's like, nah.
We have been around the sun. I'm going on 31.
Yeah, I'm going to be. Well, I'm 39. I would say I'm 39.
You don't want to say about the...
Well, I'll be 40 in December. So yeah.
Okay. Skyali said, was vegan for 3 years and got to the point I was in so much pain I had to change. I tried many different vegan ways of eating as well.
Yeah.
Twan says, continues to push the blue zones.
I don't know.
The blue zones are areas in the planet where people traditionally live longer lifespans and healthier lifespans than most people. So we're actually on a blue zone. Okinawa, Japan. Where I come from, Loma Linda, I live real close to that. Was a blue zone too.
Yeah.
Because they're 7-day Adventists, but that's a whole nother tangent.
Oh, okay.
I also believe the vegan agenda is being pushed so hard for depopulation. Definitely something in there. All right. Okay, I think that's pretty much it. Nobody else wants to come on here. Yeah, we will. I think this was a good discussion. I didn't expect this many people to come on here and want to discuss this. I know it's kind of challenging for some people to speak openly about this, and especially in front of people who perceive them in a certain way. So with that being said,
Okay,
Girl, give me
I
that.
know I messed it
I
up.
did that so we can both be on camera. All right. With that being said, I'm glad that you guys tuned in. And if you're somebody who's going through something, okay, let me read this last one real quick. Hello from Japan. Here, non-Japanese people are trying to push vegan agenda in Japan, but Japanese people love fish. The problem is they are doing pet farm animals. Pets.
Oh yeah.
Okay, that's a different thing.
Yeah, you don't open the can of worms for him to start talking about that.
Yeah, no, but I was gonna say if you are a person, especially if you're like a woman who's pregnant and or has had children, and is being requested, like your body's asking you to maybe try something different, but you have this belief or this dogma that you've been programmed with, you know, that doesn't let you incorporate some of these foods into your life. Please feel liberated to explore that and to listen to your body and to be able to heal yourself with whatever measures that you need to take.
Yeah.
So that's what it's all about, coming back to balance, coming back to that balance point, whether it's eating certain herbs or plants or whether it's eating certain animal foods. Doesn't matter, as long as we come back to balance. That's the goal, so at the end of the day, that's what we're focused on.
Yeah.
So you have anything else you want to say?
No.
As this plant pollinates us.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll see you guys later, and as always, stay balanced.
Stay balanced.
Peace.